Into this, we're live, so hi.
Well, there I am.
There you are.
That's how I feel. Very, very blurry.
Move, Drizzle. Move, puppy.
Wow, we are really out of focus.
Move.
That's how much of a leg I've got. Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody. Move. Move, please. Let me get connected to the chat here.
There's one person waiting.
Hi. Hi, Drizzle.
Yes, everybody's going to be paying attention to the dogs who are paying attention to Melissa. And is that mute supposed to be muted?
Yes, because that's the TV. I want the TV muted. I want you to be able to see the chat, which there's no chat right now.
Okay.
But I wanted you to be able to see the chat.
Okay.
I wanted you to be able to see the chat, which there is no chat right now.
Anyone want it?
It says we got 2 viewers, so somebody besides me is watching.
Hello, somebody besides us.
Yeah, lay down, puppy. Lay down.
Yeah, I know I'm not the draw that
The dogs are. Well, you gonna go sit with Daddy then? Are you gonna go sit with Daddy? You want to sit with him, Drizzle? We got a great view of your butt.
All right. Chat started or?
There's nobody in chat yet. I'm still showing 2 viewers.
Okay.
So somebody besides us is watching. So hello, whoever you are, say hi to us in the chat.
All right, so we'll give it a second or two. I will vamp for time. Normally for business meetings, I would ask what the weather is. We're in the lovely Midwest where it is incredibly warm and humid again. Which was Gen Con. Well, let me know when you want me to get started.
Well, give it a couple more minutes. See if somebody else drops in.
No.
Hi, Scott. It's me. I'm multitasking and trying to find out some information, talking to my neighbor. I'll participate in the chat shortly. Okay. Well, cool. We've got someone here hanging out with us. We appreciate that. We'll see if anybody else wants to join here in a couple of minutes.
I don't know why you thought you'd be able to sit without having both of them. I can get away with it because they don't like me.
Oh, they like you. They just like you differently than they like me. Hi.
Well, they
Hello.
okay. Maybe they like me, but they lick you.
Billy is a toe licker. Are you a toe licker? Are you a toe licker? Yes, you are. You're a toe licker. You are very much a toe licker. Mwah. Hi.
Oh, I forgot the squishmallow.
Huh?
The squishmallow.
Oh, Husky. Is that what you're seeing up there? Yeah.
Yeah, there's wow, lots of lag.
Yeah.
All right. So it's just Scott.
So far, it's the only person who said anything. So.
Dan's doing the convention stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I texted him and Jess to let them know that we were going to be on, and if they had a minute to drop on by. So I texted Ashley to let her know. So.
See a geeky
Oh.
man's trip. All right.
So there's starting to get a few more people in the view. So we're gonna get started today. We're gonna do a little bit of a different live stream today. Matt, and you may know him as Syberhubby, is going to be talking about his Gen Con experience. Gen Con is a tabletop gaming convention that includes, oh gosh, a little bit of everything, it seems like these days. Matt has gone several times, but he hasn't been in about 5 years now. 6 years. So this was his first time going in a while. But we thought it'd be kind of fun to talk to you a little bit about his experience, what he saw there, the games that he played, the cosplay that he did. Hi, Zulu Crafter. So we're going to turn it over to Matt. He's going to talk about his time away from me. I had 5 whole days without him. I won't say that it was nice because it wasn't, but I wanted him to have some fun, and it's not something I'm necessarily interested in, and it's nice that each of us have our own hobbies that we can go do. So, Matt gets to talk now. Yay!
All right. So hi, I'm Syberhubby, or Matt, whichever you prefer. I have been gaming for many, many, many years. Role-playing games, board games, card games, the like. And living in the Midwest, we are fortunate enough to have the 2 big game conventions in the region: Origins, which is in Columbus, and Gen Con, which is the biggest gaming convention in North America. So basically, at the end of every July, beginning of every August, for the past 56 years, there's been a convention where a bunch of people get together and go game. Gen Con is now in Indianapolis. It's been there for about 21 years, and it's huge. So we're talking, this year they announced attendance, which technically I think is a record. At least it got us back to pre-pandemic numbers of 71,000 unique paid attendees. That doesn't count all the working staff and everything else. To understand the scale of the place, if you've ever been to downtown Indianapolis, they have a couple 100,000 square foot convention center. It's huge, right? Multiple floors, and it's connected to like 7 different hotels. Plus, it's connected to the Lucas Oil Stadium, which is the home of the Indianapolis Colts for football. And basically, all of that is taken over for 5 days for the gaming. So there's stuff going on in each and every one of the hotels and all their meetings and conference rooms. There's games going on in the arena, on the arena floor at Lucas Oil, at the stadium, and in the luxury suites for some specialty games with YouTube celebrities who do live play, live streaming of their own games. There is stuff in the convention center itself on all the floors, in the hallways that connect the stadium to the convention center, and like I said, all the 6 or 7 hotels that are connected and everything else. Basically, we're at capacity. Indy does about, like I said, 70,000 people. They're building another hotel, convention annex that's supposed to add another couple 100,000 square feet, and I think 1,000 rooms. It's supposed to be done in a couple of years, and they'll sell that out as soon as they're done. So what do we do there? Basically, it started as a bunch of war gamers doing stuff, like 12 people in the late 60s, up to 100 in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is like a Milwaukee suburb, or at least outside of Milwaukee, and that's why it's called Gen Con. It moved to Milwaukee through like 2002, and it was 20,000 people. Then it moved to Indy in the late 2000s. It started out, it got big as Dungeons and Dragons. The guy who started Gen Con was Gary Gygax, who was one of the inventors with Dave Arneson of Dungeons and Dragons, and they built it out there and came up, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then around 2000, Wizards of the Coast came around. They're the people who did Magic and Pokemon, and they had huge amounts of card play, and then it exploded. So there are thousands and thousands of events at Gen Con. There are people playing role-playing games. There are people playing card games like Magic and Pokemon and all the others. Board games. They have murder mysteries and escape rooms. Social games like Are You a Werewolf, where you get in groups of people doing that. They have live action role playing, which is, like I said, an elaborate murder mystery type thing. Dozens and dozens of board game tournaments, miniature war game tournaments, and the like. There's just it's huge for scale. It's hard to imagine if you've never been. You're walking around constantly with 70,000 of your closest friends. There's also the convention theme also has a lot of other events. They have like crafting things. They have design stuff. Seminars on how to be a better player, how to be a better gamer, how to design your own games, how to sell your own games, how to be a podcaster, a gaming podcaster, and the like. There are movies during the entire thing. I could have seen something like 25 to 30 different shorts to feature-length movies that were being released there. They have gaming auctions where people bring in their historical stuff to sell, or just their used games and do that. There is a 150,000 square foot shopping area that has everything from board games and dice to clothing, memorabilia, costumes, art. They have an artist row and an author row where there's dozens of artists and authors. I've met like a bunch of New York Times bestselling authors that are usually the guest of honor, and occasionally they have like a puppetry program. And a couple of years ago, they had Steve Whitmore. The last time I went in 2018, who was the puppeteer who took over Kermit the Frog for the Muppets after Jim Henson passed away. Right? There's all sorts of stuff there, and it's just you go around, and like I said, there's also cosplayers, people who dress up in costume, go and do exhibits. They have huge amounts of charity events where you do all sorts of fun stuff for charity. They do where they build this giant castle or dragon. This year it was a gnome cottage that was about 25 feet wide and about 12 feet tall out of balloons. And they built it all during the 4 days. And then Sunday afternoon, the last day, they raffle off for charity the rights to pop it. to pop all the balloons, right? And that draws a couple hundred people to watch. They have another area called Card Holla where they take a bunch of old, like worn out Pokemon and other playing cards. They build huge, card city out of it. People build it all during the 4 days. It's Saturday night. They bid and you get to throw coins at it to knock it down. And again, they collect all the money for charity. There's always a blood drive and other charity events there. So it's really cool. You go and play a bunch of games, interact, meet, do a bunch of stuff. And Melissa said, maybe you guys would be interested. Don't know. But it was a lot of fun. And we'll, any questions, we'll answer. If not, we'll keep talking. Or I can just point to Gilly, who's happily chewing his intestine.
You can't see because he's off camera. But...
All right. So did you have any questions, dear? We have some loot here we'll show in a bit. Don't want to run out of airtime.
Oh, yeah, run out of airtime.
So, yeah. So,
yeah. So Zulu Crafter says Gen Con sounds like so much fun. Scott Somerville says sounds like a fun event. Didn't realize there was anything that large for gaming.
Oh yeah. That's the biggest in North America. There's the German version in Essen gets over 100,000 people for board games. Stuff like if you've seen Settlers of Catan or Ticket to Ride, they're called Euro style games because they're basically, if you ever see one, they're designed to be multiple people, simple mechanics, usually designed to be understandable without markers on the board, right? The cards and everything are kind of generic and symbolized so that when they're doing it for the European markets, they can build one market and don't have to build new equipment for it. They just, new pieces, they just basically put a new set of rules in and then they can sell it, they can put in the German rules and sell it in Germany, put the English rules to sell it in the UK, French rules to sell it in France, etc., right? But yeah, there's just huge amounts of stuff. I went to do some of the more unusual games. Drizzle, move your paw. You're gonna knock over the ring light. Okay, he didn't. But some of the more creative stuff. So there was a game where basically there were about 50 of us doing a game where we were dealing with an alien invasion, right? So all the people are being divided up into teams of 4 that represent countries that all have their own individual agendas. And they're trying to get what they want for their country and against each other's. And then there was a couple of teams that were playing the different groups of aliens. And then there was a couple of us that were playing the media and got to go around. So basically we played for 6 hours where everybody breaks up into groups, negotiates with their own team, then tries to get the stuff out of the other people, and they do their own things. Meanwhile, I'm sneaking around everywhere, listening to everybody and making up really bad stories. And every about 25 minutes, I'm basically creating a 2-minute news broadcast, trying to be as funny as possible and keep everybody's interest while telling them what's going on. So it's all sorts of, it's all, all in good fun and humor. This one, somewhere halfway through, we found out that there were rumors of the aliens had taken over and were in some of the country's governments. And then it was the aliens were having relations with the leaders of the government in the biblical sense. And that led to much humor as we ended up having interviews and having discussions where the British and the French were trying to explain to the others that the aliens were more interested in them because they were better. The British were better lovers than the French, and the French were better lovers than the British. It was interesting. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Russians were handing out fake news to everybody to have me put out with sillier and sillier things and all the rest. But basically, yeah, it's just a bunch of interacting like a really big murder mystery. Then I did a bunch of role playing games, some board games. But there's something there for everyone, and literally at any one time, 24 hours a day, pretty much, there is something going on. There's some games out there that are basically called social deduction games. You just get a group of people. One of them's called Werewolf, where you have two people who are pretending to be werewolves in a group of others, and they know who each other are, but nobody else does. And they're basically slowly removing people out of the bigger group. And the bigger group is trying to figure out who the werewolves are. It's a real simple game. It was intended by a grad student who built it to show what information dynamics means, but people really like onto it. And they're playing that in groups all night, literally 2, 3, 4 a.m. They're going, right? I mean, the main time is like from about 8 to 9 a.m. to about midnight, but literally from Wednesday evening at the end of the trade show day where the corporate people are there till Sunday at 4 p.m. there are people playing games. Come here, Gilly. Just come here.
Quit hitting the stand.
He's not getting the stand, but we'll show him because Drizzle is getting to be a little cranky and a little old and slow, and his butt's bothering him. And because his butt's bothering him, he's cranky. So, okay. But yeah, it's like I said, very elaborate production. I mean, they produced this lovely, program that has a bunch of stuff in it.
So Scott wants to know if Red Bull's a sponsor. So probably need a lot of caffeine.
Yeah, there's rules and requirements to go through. First of all, you're paying arena prices for food, and it's bad. But that's another thing though. That's really cool. They've started making it into more of a party. So besides that's going on, in the space between the convention center and the stadium, there's a street, and basically they created what's called the block party. So in there's a bunch of local breweries and other things that put out party food and all the rest, right? A couple of the local breweries actually brew a special beer for Gen Con. Sun King makes a special blend each year, and then you vote on what the name is for it. And they've got this huge area. And then on the street, they've got like 50 or 60 food trucks lined down the side, so they're doing it. All the restaurants around in the area changed their menu and put in, fantasy gaming, D&D sort of names on stuff. So, everything is going on in there that the whole town gets into. The hotel staff and the restaurant staff love us gamers because a large number of us came up as service staff people, and we tip well. And we're basically nice and polite and don't abuse them like a lot of other conventions do. So they love us when we go there because they make through, There's a really nice restaurant in there called St. Elmo's, which is down the street from the convention center. If you're a foodie, it's a James Beard Award-winning restaurant. It's a steakhouse. They've got real famous cocktail sauce because they make a really strong horseradish. And it's a really flavorful cocktail sauce. And my friends and I always make it a point to go there for dinner afterwards so we can talk about our experiences and all the rest. But, and like I said, they're always jam-packed for the convention. We figured out this year that maybe it was smarter to stay the extra night and go Sunday evening after the convention is done, when it's a little calmer and we can get better service, which it was really nice. But I mean, there's all sorts of things. There's concerts. The last year I went, which was before the pandemic in 2018, They Might Be Giants played at a concert there for them. There was a concerts there, all the rest across the way. So yeah, there's always stuff going on. There's singers, musicians playing all the way through. This year they actually started bringing in more like licensed buskers, performers that they auditioned like you would at a Renaissance festival, and they were all over the place, which added to stuff. So in a couple of the ends there, they would set up convention at the convention ends in the convention hall. They would set up like stages to do performances, but there were singers and dancers and performers all the way through. So I said it is a lot of fun, a whole lot of activity, and if you enjoy playing any kinds of role-playing games, board games, card games, people always say, "Would you still play games?" I go, "Yeah, just remember that was a big enough thing to make 70,000 people spend about $100 for a ticket minimum, plus several days hotel, plus several days food." But yeah, they spend lots of time. There's a rule we put in Gen Con. It's kind of a joke. It started as a joke because people would just play all night and all day and never. The 6-to-1 rule, right? Make sure you get 6 hours sleep, 2 actual meals, and 1 shower a day. Because there were many people who did not manage to accomplish any of those things. There are a lot of stereotypes about gamers. Early Gen Con were the reasons that some of those came about, because people were going and trying to get their hard-earned money. The first couple of Gen Cons I went to, or similar ones, you'd work to get in for free because the ticket was the most expensive part. You'd work. If you worked enough hours, a lot of the companies would let you, share a room with like 6 people you'd never met before. And but it was your ticket to get in, and there was enough stuff going on that you were there 4 days. You worked 2.5 of them, and you had 1.5 on your own ticket to do. So. Yeah, yep. And it's changed. When I first started going in the early 2000s, it was very much nerds and guys. And now there's as many, it's a 60-40 gender split. This year was a little older, I think, because the economy's starting to go a little with inflation and that a lot of the guys who came where people could afford it and a lot of the younger ones couldn't. But I saw lots of younger people the last few years, lots of families, actually, people going with their kids. They have special areas now where you can go in with the kids, and they've got booths where they were doing game stuff, and they were making crafts and doing stuff for it, right? They have a whole program for gaming widows and widowers, right? So if your wife or your husband is your partner wants to game, you don't, they have all sorts of stuff. Stuff like they do tours of the local museums, more artsy, crafty, continuing ed type classes, belly dancing, arts and crafts. One that was very popular that had entrances about every hour was the bicycle powered beer tour. One of those contraptions where you've probably seen them if you've been in Vegas or Florida, where you're all sitting at like a mobile bar that rides down the streets that you pedal. They had that going around all the time. But they had a lot of stuff for the kids, because where I would go through to go back to my hotel was where the kids lab was, and every day they would put out a different sign, like, how many eyes should a monster have? And it's a magnetic board, and they had the little buttons that kids would draw on it, and vote. And no, none, 1, 2, tons and tons and tons, and the kids would vote on that, and you could see them.
So hi, Jim. Yeah, we gotta make sure everybody stays nice and clean. Says they thought about going to the Detroit Comic Con just to see the celebrity guests. and cosplays, but too much effort. You've been to
Yeah,
Motor City Comic Con.
I've been to Motor City Comic Con. I went, like I said, around 2000. When we were running games for Wizards of the Coast. We were doing it specifically there because I wouldn't have gone to a Comic Con otherwise. I hope it's changed because when we were there, it was basically just the events to see the people, the handful of games we were trying to do, and tons of vendors that all seemed to have the same 20 things, with very little variety and a whole lot of bootleg
Really?
tapes, like bootleg anime, bootleg stuff. For those of you old enough to remember the original Charm, they had the original pilot before it was on the internet. And my friend who I was there with was a federal probation officer. And his comment was, with one little phone call, I could get a promotion. At the amount of bootlegging and tapes and all the rest of the stuff he went through. But yeah, the Comic Con is hopefully they've changed. The best example of that, Jim, is Dragon Con in Atlanta, because Dragon Con has a lot of gaming, and it has more events like San Diego does or New York does. Michigan's Comic Con is kind of because a lot of what you're paying for is to go away and see the panels and all the rest. And if that's all you want to do, that's great. There are panels at Gen Con too. I've gone to a couple, but generally when I'm going there, when I game with my friends, we role play, and I have to be the dungeon master. I'm the dungeon master for life. My friend from high school, Steve, who I've now known for almost 40 years, right?
Only 4 years because you just graduated high school?
Yeah, only 4 years. There wasn't a zero attached. I've known his brother literally that long at this point. But Steve's a little younger, and we didn't hook up till later in my high school career.
Careful how you say that phrase. Unfortunately, it means different things these days.
We didn't. Yeah. But we always do. So Gen Con's a chance where we get to play with other people, right? So we get to play, and none of us have to run. We can all be players and interact. Today we had that. We were there. Bert with his wife. Bert's 20 years younger than us, but he's part of our group. John, Steve's brother, who I've known, like I said, 40 years, came up from Atlanta. So
Scott wants to know, is there any online gaming, or is this primarily for in-person type gaming?
They have done online games in the past. They really went heavy into that during the pandemic, and they still did that. Actually, they do what they call Gen Con Live. So they're basically live streaming events and walking around, and have a YouTube channel that goes live during the convention itself. I saw Jim also said the lab coat. Yeah, the lab coat was, I went and I decided that this may very well have been my last Gen Con because I'm getting older and crankier, unfortunately. But it was so crowded and warm. But I decided to do a cosplay. And I tried to do something that was fit my body type, because you can see how svelte I am. And was cool in both the figurative and literal senses of the term, because it is incredibly hot in Indianapolis in the summer, and it's incredibly humid. You wouldn't think so, but Indianapolis, it was so bad. It was like 90, 92 a couple of the days. The humidity was so bad that I was literally on the 23rd floor of the hotel, directly across from the convention center, and less than about 400 yards from Lucas Oil, the football stadium. The fog in the morning was so bad I couldn't see the football stadium, and I could barely see the convention center less than 100 yards away. It was that bad. So I wanted to make a costume to get into it more, to do a cosplay. And I had seen a couple of, there's a whole lot of really good cosplays out there. People doing the superheroes, doing the video game people, and all the rest. And the ones who are really fit and doing the revealing other stuff. and it's cool. But I had seen stuff for a couple of older guys who had done really cool ideas that were simple and cool in not being ungodly hot. Because a couple of years ago, I saw a guy doing Doctor Who, the old Tom Baker one, with the sweater and the scarf that goes on forever and the big hat. And I swear to God, I thought the guy was going to keel over from heat stroke. It was a great costume, but I said no. And there were two guys. One was dressed as Tony Stark, and basically he was wearing a very light suit, open shirt, and he had an arc reactor under his shirt. The second guy was playing Hammond from the original Jurassic Park movie. The guy who, Attenborough, the actor who played the old man who built it. And all he was wearing was the hat, that Gavavera, the really cool white costume. And he was walking around with a staff with a piece of amber and a bug in it on the top. And it was a great costume because he looked like the part. There was a guy doing that again this year. He was hanging out little plastic dinosaurs to anybody who interacted with him. So I said, oh, okay, what can I do? And I said, I play a lot of horror games. I enjoy that. I like the concept. And there's Call of Cthulhu, which is a game that's based on the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, who does a bunch of cosmic supernatural horror, right? There's a whole bunch of aliens and weird things that come from outer space that are going to destroy us all. And I go, all right, and we go through. He did, there was a movie in the 80s called Reanimator, which is one of his worst stories, but it works. Basically, it's a mad scientist who creates an elixir and reanimates people, reanimates things. I said, I can do that because all I need to do is wear some scrubs and a lab coat. That can't be too hot. I was wrong. Those scrubs didn't breathe. The lab coat didn't breathe. I soaked through, you can see them there, but I soaked through the scrubs and the lab coat. I had sweated through in about an hour and a half on the floor. And I just, I went because I was playing a game in the world, and I did that, and I built some props to go with it because basically I like building the props. It was an excuse to do that, so we did a few little things. I don't know how well they're going to show up. We made a period little pharmacy pad, which I was using during the game, and people would ask me for stuff, so I'd write out fake prescriptions for them. I made the glow-in-the-dark elixir. I was actually rather proud of. It's got a nice greenish glow to it with a label.
Not anything to eat, Gilly.
Made a fake ID, my Asylum ID card. This was, if you've seen the name Arkham, everybody thinks Arkham Asylum from Batman, but the original Arkham was from H.P. Lovecraft's writings in the 20s and 30s. But fortunately, his estate never copyrighted stuff, so he's in the public domain, which is why he gets used by a bunch of stuff. And then we made some fake little medicine bottles as well to do that. I've been debating, Melissa's trying to convince me there's a local haunt that does a haunted house that's having open auditions, and she's trying to convince me to go try out there for it.
Yeah, Jim, so these are board games, role-playing games. These are not computer games, although like Matt said that they do live stream some of the games. So, I mean, if you wanted to watch somebody playing a game, but these are actual in-person games with real life people. I know not all of us are people anymore, but yeah, this is in real life type stuff, role-playing, board games.
There is one big computer thing that's kind of fun. So if you've ever seen BattleTech, they're big giant robots. The games are out on PlayStation and a bunch of stuff's been around. They have a bunch of pods there. They have like a dozen pods that are interconnected. So you can play in the pod. So you're like doing I'm so old school. We used to do it called LAN parties when everybody bring their computers in. but basically they're in a like a simulator pod that you get in that closes you off, that has full audio. It's got like 270 video around you, and it's got multiple commands in it, so you're fighting each other there, and you can watch them on the screen if you're there local. But that's about it. There was though an arcade that had classic computer games and or classic arcade games, stand-up arcade games where they had you could get into tournaments for that. They also had a bunch of pinball machines this year for tournaments. Basically, there was like the whole walkway that goes from the convention center down to the stadium had like 30 pinball machines, and then you could sign up and run yourself to play in the tournament to win prizes and trophies. There was a ton of that there, which was kind of interesting. There's a whole bunch of they weren't really old machines, but they were a bunch of the classic machines from the early 2000s. And some kind of cool new ones too. There was a John Wick machine that was kind of fun. Oh.
So Jim said that you would make a decent mad scientist, and you need to get some dry ice from Meyer. Jim, you need to hear his laugh and hear him when he's in character. That's why I'm kind of pushing him to go do the audition for the haunt thing, because I think that he would be one of those people that when the clients or customers or whatever, the people that are going to go through the haunted house, when they're standing in line, a lot of times they have people kind of coming through and joking around with you and stuff like that. And Matt's the kind of person who be the insulting, not tweaking you person from the balcony, you're not gonna get scared, blah 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 kind of thing. So yeah, I think he'd be really good at that.
When I was a teenager, we worked in a haunted house. We used to run one we used to do like most fundraising for muscular dystrophy. My friends and I did that. We did it for about 3 or 4 years. And it was a lot of fun. We kept getting bigger and bigger and better with it. And then high school ended and all the rest.
Yeah, Jim, board games old school board games are really making a comeback. There's so many new games out there to play. You have to find the right group of people. I'm not a super competitive person when it comes to board games, and Matt is a competitive person when it comes to board games, and he thinks much faster than I do. So when we play games together, I have a hard time sometimes because he's playing to win and I'm just playing to have fun. So we tend to not play games where it pits us against each other. We play the games where it's more we're playing against the game itself. So things like Pandemic, things like Splendor, things like Ticket to Ride, where you're not necessarily going head to head with other people. You're kind of playing against the mechanics of the game. But yeah, you kind of have to find the right group of people, and then it does become, a fun little way to spend time together.
Yeah, there's lots of they're cooperative games where you're trying to solve the puzzle of the game, and there are just so many different games there. We'll put it this way, since you guys have been on because it's the dog channel for the guys. There were at least 6 different dog related games there that I could have bought. There was one that was that's basically running an agility. One where you're running a shelter to get dogs to their forever home. One that was called Zoomies, which was a dog racing game that sold out pretty fast. There were a couple other ones. I'm trying to think of them all. There are so many games and products there that a lot of them, what they do is they do little demos, right? So you can test the game, so they're trying to sell it. You could literally, Bert, who I mentioned, a couple of years, he never even signed up for events. He just went to find the events where you can go there and try the demos there to buy the games, to find games to play with. I've got a game collection in the basement that's gotten smaller because I've been selling it off. It was a couple hundred games. But I don't buy games anymore because I don't pick good games for our group. Our group, when Melissa says my group that I play with, Bert and my friend Greg figure games that people like better in the group. I let them buy them now, and I just go over and play. But there's lots of stuff there. And like I said, there's lots of dog-related products. I mean, we brought home a couple
Jim,
of things.
there is some things that Matt wanted to. He didn't necessarily buy it at the convention because sometimes they're just, here's our product, but it's not in production yet kind of games. So he has picked up a few for us in the past. I don't remember if Zoomies was one of those ones that you were telling me about.
Zoomies I would have bought, but it sold out. The one that I looked at was Good Dog, Bad Zombie. And it was basically a cooperative game where you're trying to get from point A to point B, and your dog's protecting you during the zombie apocalypse. So the dog's trying to get from point A to point B. And it's set up that you can play your own dog, because basically they have that, and you can take a picture of your dog, put him into the counter, and use him and create your own stats for them. It was a Kickstarted game, and it wasn't to market yet, but they were there demoing it to try to get people to late pledge and do other stuff. But I mean, here's some stuff. So this, we're going to show as close as I can get there. I'm not going to lean all the way in. You don't need to see it. It's really close. That is a little dog Strider from Lord of the Rings, which a friend found for me there and gave it to us because Melissa and our first dog was Strider, a Husky. We named him after Lord of the Rings, and so finding the Husky as Strider as the sticker was nice. There was a couple person who did a bunch, if you ever play D&D, a bunch of the character classes as dogs. And they did these lovely close-home pins, right? They do pin trading too. There's everything. It's basically, right? And we just got two of them because these were two Huskies, the monk and the barbarian. Melissa was kind of upset that the Husky was a barbarian. I said, yeah, that applies. Gilly doesn't think there's rules that affect him either. So
Drizzle and Gilly do as zombie hunters. Yeah. Gilly, I could maybe see. Drizzle, he's the speed bump to make the zombies fall over at this point. But
but yeah, I mean, like I said, you really got to see all the different stuff. Like I said, the only problem is there were so many people. The cost of the hotel. You have to go into a lottery to get a hotel close. The only reason I was as close as I was, which is I was in one of the hotels that was attached, is John, my friend who came up from Atlanta, travels for work regularly. I mean, we're talking he's a Marriott, whatever the highest tier is. So he was able to pull strings to get us a room. Because literally when I pulled to get hotel rooms, we didn't get to book until 2.5 hours out. We would have been about 4 miles away. So, that's the problem. It's just gotten so big and so out of control.
Which is why I will never go.
Yeah. I mean, literally. I mean, Melissa might be putting it up on the channel. I took some videos. You would not believe the amount of people that are in the rooms and everything else. You got
to play to their strengths, Jim. You got to play to their strengths.
I mean, if you're interested in that, there's always, you can go to stuff. Literally, the first day, I didn't leave my hotel because my events both were in that hotel room, right? So I came up, went down. Excuse me. It was fun, but like I said, it's lots of fun. If you've got a local game convention, if you're interested, find out there's always local ones. Michigan has a couple that are worthwhile. Pretty much all over the Midwest has them. LA has a few small ones that are really good. There's a group out in St. Louis that I would really recommend if anybody's close to St. Louis to want to do it. Go play. Go get out with your friends, get interested. It just gives you something to do to discuss with all the stuff, right?
Jim, if you're at all interested in the possibility of checking out a game convention, let me know, and then Matt can let me know when the next one is, because there's one that's always in Ypsilanti in like November.
Yes.
And is that also the April one too?
They're both in the same spot. They're different. So Michigan has two big conventions. They have Chaosium Con in April, which is newer, which is based all on a couple of games by one company. One is the horror stuff that I was talking about, H.P. Lovecraft. The other two games are 7th Sea, which is a pirate game, and RuneQuest, which is a weird D&D like fantasy role playing game with a lot of backstory and history to it. But then in November they do UConn, because it used to be at the University of Michigan. That is more generic. They have board games, they have role playing games, they have a bunch of other stuff there. It's at Eagle Crest in Ypsi, which is right off of 94. Not that expensive. It's a decent location. The hotel does a pretty good job with the staff and everything else. And if you're interested, you can go. Tickets for UConn are going to be probably $30 to $40 to get in, plus event fees, whereas a 4-day pass for Gen Con is $125 now. Plus, you can pay anywhere from $5 to $10. So
you to go and check. I just go to things like that just to look around and watch people. Matt sometimes runs games. If you're at all interested in kind of seeing how things are run, again, let me know. I can let you know when Matt's running some games. He'll take you under his wing if you're interested at all, and he will show you the ropes and, you know. Oh, drizzle.
The other thing to say, I just want to go walk around. In the past, you used to be able to do that. Now, if you stay at the peripheries, like at Gen Con, yeah, you could go walk around, obviously, the food trucks, and walk around the outer perimeter of the exhibit halls and the rest. But if you try to go into like any of the vendor halls or where the main games were, you wouldn't get in because they're checking for badges. I mean, they go to the extent you've got basically, this was this year's badge, nice and plastic. Everybody's doing that because even the two horror people I was looking, these were my last two from the last one. They check it. They won't let you in with it. I mean, I got yelled at several times because I wasn't wearing the normal one. I've got a nice wallet one that comes with it that puts stuff in, and that was using for stuff. And I got yelled at because it was flipped over backwards. I wanted to see it, right? And I said, a lot of people are dedicated. I mean, I've got on my current badge, this guy. And if you're interested in listening to what a game sounds like, I'll send you the podcast. These guys were actually pretty good. They did this Lester Goodman joke. These guys were from the UK. They do a podcast, and they came all the way to Ann Arbor in April to play because it's the convention for the game they love, and it's fairly new. This year was the second year that they've run it there, and everybody came. But I mean, that convention in Ypsi's only a couple hundred of us, but there are people from all over the country. And like I said, the UK, there were Germans. There was somebody from Poland, I think, and a Czech. I didn't see them. I run, like Melissa says, I run games there because it's a horror game. It's set in the 20s and 30s, and they're coming to Detroit, and I love showing Detroit off to people. Detroit in the 20s was basically Silicon Valley. Detroit went from having a population of less than 500,000 around the turn of the 20th century to over 2.5 million by the middle of the 30s because of the car industry and everything else. And there were tons of airplane plants and the car plants and the tech and all the rest of this stuff. So Detroit was huge and booming and has a lot of really, really cool stuff, really cool architecture and a bunch of other stuff that people forget because, of all the decline Detroit hit in the 80s and 90s. Oh, yes and no. Consumerism is really there, but it's consumerism of people trying to get their games out. I mean, there's lots of stuff there where you've got people that are doing their life dream, right? The guys who have built a game and are trying to sell it at Gen Con, right? They built it themselves, or they're doing it, they've done it as a Kickstarter. But it's really geeky stuff. The equivalent, I would say, is if you've gone to a Ren fair, that's the attitude. It's consumerist, but it's gameplay. The example I'm going to give that Melissa might post as a video of, I don't know if it's good enough or not. I am not a videographer by any way, shape, or form. She'll tell you that. But on Sunday evening, I'm walking through the convention center to go to the restaurant to meet my friends for dinner, right? We all ended up in different hotels, so we're going to meet at St. Elmo's. And as a tradition, we dress up, okay? Actually, in previous years, when we went during the convention, we dressed up I was in a tuxedo with tails and a wrestling mask, full Mexican wrestling mask. All four of us were. Rather interesting experience going into a 4-star restaurant with wrestling masks, but we got so much attention that day. It was hilarious, but that's a story for another time. But I'm walking through the hotel in a suit because it's hot out, and I'm walking through the air conditioning, right? And the convention is officially over. All the events are done. The building's still open because a lot of the vendors are starting to break down their booths, right? And I've gone from seeing these hallways that are 40, 50, 60 feet wide, jam full of people, completely empty. And I'm walking all the way through. And I get to the exit because it's air conditioned, right? I get to the exit where I have to get out onto the street to walk. And there's a couple of those little privacy pods like you see at airports or some businesses have, where it's the little enclosure that's soundproof with a light in their table, charger that you can use to take a meeting or that. And there were 2 people in there with all their stuff. You could see their suitcases and everything else, obviously waiting for somebody to come pick them up or an Uber to come, whatever they were doing. And they're sitting in there playing a card game, probably playing Magic or Pokemon with each other, right? And that's the epitome of Gen Con. That the convention's over with and done. There's nothing else going on, but these 2 people are still trying to play and enjoy themselves. And that's the spirit of it. But yeah, the consumerism part, we need 70,000 people there. It's that 70,000 people spending at least $1,000 each. When you add in the hotel room, the food, travel cost, the badge, if you buy any kind of souvenirs or games, that's $70 million for 4 days. And then realistically, it's probably 3 or 4 times that. And people, it's nuts. And that's part of the problem. There's just too many people. I don't think I might change my mind. Let me know. I've been kind of cranky. Melissa was trying to get me out of my funk. I may go to the game convention. There's a couple big ones that are smaller that Melissa might be able to tolerate. Origins in Columbus.
Yes,
71,000 paid attendees. That doesn't include the work staff, the support staff of the centers, and it may not count a significant number of vendors. So when you're talking about that, 80,000 is probably a more realistic count of how many people are in that square mile of space. It is huge. I said if the videos are usable, you can see the walk around. We'll do a montage together. And the distance between them is, I was walking 20,000 steps a day going between all the places because it's just that much to get to all the locations. So, okay, we're running up on the hour. Any other questions, or was Jim in? Yeah, Novi is about a fifth of one of the card halls. Figure 12 Oaks. Figure 12 Oaks plus Fountain Walk across the way. The 2 malls there were together all that space with gaming, that would be closer to what you're getting. Or if you ever go down to the auto show downtown, figure all of Cobo, Joe Louis, and a bunch of the hotels interconnected. And Indy's a great spot for this because the hotels are all connected by walkways. So theoretically, you can make it to any of your events walking through walkways. And they've got some really cool places. The one hotel, Union Station, is a former railroad hotel with a rail station underneath it. They do it for some of the interactive games, the live action role playing, the murder mystery type stuff, especially if it's like Victorian, because there's a bunch of train cars in there. In fact, they have hotel rooms that you can basically stay in an old 1880s style Victorian sleeper car as a hotel room for Union Station. It's one of those things that if we go down, Melissa, I've tried to talk to Melissa, I'd like to take her to the restaurant St. Elmo's, that maybe if we did that, we would go and book a room at Union Station because it'd be kind of cool. And it's within walking distance of all this stuff. There's also another indie restaurant that's famous. I forget the name of it, but basically they insult you.
No.
I don't want to go eat, but when you walk by, they have somebody that the way you just described me as, insulting people to get them to come in. So.
Yeah, not my cup of tea. Was it when whole old RCA done?
Not sure what that is. If you're talking the old RCA dome, yeah, that's Lucas Oil. So yeah, all that space. Yeah, like I said, Indy's a really good spot. The biggest discussion is with Indy's at capacity. They got to build more, and we don't know how much more they're going to build. And people have made noises, will Gen Con limit itself, which will make it pricier because people will bid against each other to do it? Or does it move? And the only two places it can realistically move is Vegas and Chicago. And I don't want to go to Vegas. And Chicago, while it's got space for the gaming and the hotels, it's not easy because in Indy, most of the people can just walk around and you feel fairly safe. If you're at Chicago, it's going to have to be at McCormick, and there's no hotels as close, and you got to ride the L and a whole bunch of stuff. All right?
That's okay, Jim. We figured it out.
Yeah, no, I knew what you meant with the RCA. Yeah, no, I didn't even talk about the live dungeon, which is basically they take part of the training area of the underneath of the RCA dome and turn it into an actual live dungeon with people dressed up as monsters, and you're doing physical tasks and tricks to try to solve things with it, right? So you've got to solve puzzles, moving bricks around or doing that. So think the world's biggest escape room. They do that too. There's all sorts of stuff. Yeah, Vegas is nicer, but I'm not going to Vegas in summer. There's no way. And they're not going to switch it. They because it's basically too many people here are doing it in July or August. And August, Vegas, yeah. And the thing is, honestly, I don't know where they do it in Vegas because they'd have to spread it around so much. It would lose the intimacy that Indy does. So, but yeah, I like Indianapolis a lot. We like going down for a bunch of stuff. We drove down this time, and the guy I was driving with was in a hurry. He wouldn't let me stop at the Bob Ross Museum. I was so upset. We did. We saw the Bob Ross Museum, and I was like, "Can we stop?" And no.
Well.
Okay. All right. Well, if nothing else, Jim, we talked. But yeah, if you ever want to do that,
Scott and Zulu Crafter, thanks for stopping in.
Yep. And that's why you do things to solve puzzles. And that's why when I do the role-playing stuff and the murder mysteries, anything you can do, I can make you go longer. Trust me. I've done this for 40 years. So yeah, we can make it and do this stuff. But again, some place like Gen Con is real cool just to see and walk around. There's just so much stuff to do. Look online, and maybe I'll put Melissa, if you're interested in role playing or that, there's a lot of really cool stuff. For a lot of role playing stuff, there's a bunch of actors who do this stuff now. I would recommend Google Deborah Ann Wool. She was part of the Daredevil stuff on Netflix. She was the secretary for Matt Murdock and Foggy. She is a DM. She does a lot of really cool stuff. She's got broadcasts out there. I just watched her do a really cool podcast with John Bergenthal, the guy who was on Walking Dead and was the Punisher for Netflix, explaining D&D and all that stuff. Go look at that if you're interested. It's really worth your time. She's really, really good at what she does and explains the fun of the hobby in a few words. So. All right. We've put Drizzle out.
Yeah, it's past his bedtime.
All right.
We moved his bed. We moved his dog bed so we could set up the live stream, and I think he's a little fussy because he doesn't have his normal bed to lay on. So, all right, so we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks so much for stopping. Don't Drizzle. Yeah, I know. You're just I know, sweetheart. Anyway, thanks for stopping in. Whose head is sticking out of the couch? Gilly. That's Gilly. This is Gilly over here. Drizzle's on the floor. You can't see him. Yeah, if you're interested in hearing some more about Gen Con or gaming in general, leave some comments down once this goes up as a replay. Let me know. We can get Matt to do some more stuff for us. Yeah, Jim, we had 5 of the 6 butterflies have come on out, and 4 of them were healthy enough to be released. 1 was unfortunately deformed. We did end up releasing him, but we're not sure he's going to survive because we just put him in back in our garden. So it's been fun to watch, and we've got some more videos of them coming out and being released here pretty soon. So a little bit of everything here on this channel. Yeah. All right, I got to get up and hit the button. Let's see. So is Catan too basic for Matt?
No, but I refuse to say I have wood for sheep. But actually that was one of the things they did. I didn't bring it up. They were handing out little buttons to everybody that were little for proper in bags at random, right? There were little buttons that were wood, sheep, all the commodities. So the idea was that if you had to go and trade with other people that had it, so once you had a full set of 4, you could go back to the Catan booth and get a special something. There was lots of like promo type stuff like that and free stuff. I didn't show it here, but they gave me a coupon book that's like, the big huge ones you used to get in Vegas back in the day with a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I'm not a trader guy with Catan, because Catan and I have had bad experiences. Though I have Star Trek Catan downstairs in the basement.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. Catan is like Monopoly. There's all sorts of variants, but I have a Star Trek Catan downstairs.
Yeah, Jess and Jamie really enjoy Catan, however you say it. And so she often talks about playing Settlers of Catan, and she's got a bunch of different expansion set. And then since Jamie has a 3D printer, and I think Greg might have a 3D printer too, they've gone through and made 3D prints of a lot of the I guess the stuff that's on the cards or something like that. So,
Yeah, so you can
she
put it
often
down.
talks about Catan in her video. So those of us who are followers of Jess know about Catan.
Yeah, the only
Is
two
Catan
Catans I've got
popular
is
today like D&D was in the 70s and 80s?
D&D is more popular today than it ever was in the 80s, because now cool people actually do this, right? I mean, there are the example I say is in the 80s, I never would have had Joe Penn, the one who's married to what's her Manganiello, who was married to Sofia Vergara. Was a gamer. He does live streams and all the rest. And Sophia actually went and found one of the original D&D artists from the books and had that artist do a custom portrait for Joe's character. That never would have happened in the 80s. Now it's cool stuff. In the 80s it was geeks. Now it's all the theater people. So all the gleeks that were there. And I say that as a former gleek. So yeah.
Oh, so you've played Catan before, Jim? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, there's tons of those games. So, that are, and that's part of the problem. There's so many games coming out, and it's the new cool. You get a lot of people that play basic, I'm calling them basic gamers. They find a game or two they like and they play it all the time. And then you get the guys who are the cult of the new. They have to play the latest and greatest thing, and they play everything like twice. One of the people in my group is like that, and it's like, I don't want to keep learning new games. Thank you. Because they're all the same things. No, there's still room. It's just there's lots and lots more geeks there. We're still nerds though. All right, we should probably wrap up because I think I'm going to need to use the facilities.
Okay. All right, I gotta get over there to press the button. Thanks so much for stopping by, everybody. We appreciate it, and we hope you have a good weekend. Wave bye-bye.
Gilly.